maybe a word in season. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Nikki. Hello, everyone. Wasn't that good just now? Like, I loved that exercise with just encouraging people. So it was a great idea, Nikki. Anyway, this morning, because we've got exciting things planned after the service, so it won't be a long message. But I want to talk a little bit about Advent and the time of waiting. Now, Advent is, a season where we usually have lots of lovely food, and around Christmas too. And for those of you who are concerned about their nutrition, there's a lot of conflicting advice out there, but I've got some conclusion to all of that and some statements. And by the way, each of these statements is actually correct according to some study or some article. So here's what you need to know. Number one, the Japanese eat very little fat and suffer fewer heart attacks than the English. Number two, the Mexicans eat a lot of fat and suffer fewer heart attacks than the English. Number three, the Chinese drink very little red wine and suffer fewer heart attacks than the English. Number four, the Italians drink a lot of red wine and suffer fewer heart attacks than the English. Number five, the Germans drink a lot of beer, they eat a lot of fats, and suffer fewer heart attacks than the English. Conclusion, eat and drink what you like. Speaking English is apparently what kills you. So enjoy your food at Christmas. Okay, so Advent, we're almost in Advent. Next Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent, and it's a time of waiting and preparing for the birth of Jesus. Now, generally, waiting in English is associated with, it's boring, it's a little bit tedious. It's something negative, like we wait in line, we wait for a doctor's appointment. It's a waste of time, but the thing is, waiting in the Bible is actually a positive thing, and it's associated with good things. The Hebrew word for waiting is kwawah, and there's a lot of different words for waiting in the Bible, but this is quite a common one. And what it actually means is to eagerly await, be expectant, leaning in, focusing on whatever you're waiting for intensely. So it means that we focus intensely on what we are waiting for, and all our energy, there's energy rising up in us, new life rising up in us, and it flows towards preparing for it. Isaiah 40:31, and I don't have it up on the board, I don't have a lot of Bible passages. Isaiah 40:31 says, those who hope in the Lord, and the word for hope is actually wait, it's kwawah, those who wait for the Lord, will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Now, the verse doesn't describe that we've already received what we're waiting for, but it actually describes the time of waiting and what happens during the waiting. And what happens is that our strength is renewed. Now, the word for renewed is kalaf, and it means a change for the better. It means growing, gaining new life. So the waiting period changes us, we're gaining new life during the waiting period and kind of new energy. And during Advent, we can kind of see how that is actually true. We focus intensely on Christmas. We start preparing for it. There's Christmas decorations everywhere, so we're reminded of it. We go and plan for Christmas, what we're going to do. We buy our food. We put up decorations, we invite people, so everything's focused on that, and there's an energy and an excitement about that. So I thought my question to you this morning is, this is how we are for Christmas, waiting for Christmas, but do we actually have the same intent focus, the same expectation, the anticipation, the joy, when we're waiting for things that maybe have taken a little while? So we're waiting for things, a dream to come true. We're waiting that we've asked God for, or we're waiting for a promise of God, or we're waiting for an answer to prayer. Do we still have that same intense focus? Now, according to a survey, people only wait in line for about 15 minutes before they leave. It's not very long, but and obviously we have a little bit more patience when we are waiting for something more important, like, you're waiting for a partner in life, or you're waiting for a baby, or you're waiting for a change in your circumstances, or for a better job. So you may have more patience, but would it be true that, often, like, if the waiting drags on and on and on, like, there comes a point when we actually take our focus off it, we get disappointed, and we kind of go, oh, well, and you're actually not waiting for it anymore. I came across this one lady. She's a Christian author and speaker, Lisa Harper. I hadn't heard of her before, but I quite like her. So I listened to a couple of messages that she gave, and she said, like, she had an abusive childhood, like dad was quite abusive, and she always wanted a family, and she wanted children, but then she ended, I think she's about my age now, 57. I'm 58, I think. I'm 58, actually. It changes every year. But so she said she was still single in her 40s, and but she still really wanted to be a mother, and so in her 40s, and she felt God had said yes. So she got adoption papers and started the process of adopting. And she shared that with her small group in church, and she said one lady came up and said to her, look, Lisa, I think you've missed the boat. You shouldn't be mothering anyone with your childhood trauma. You're just only going to pass on your trauma to your child. And she said, the lady didn't mean to be mean, like she meant well, but it really affected her so much. She felt ashamed for her childhood, and so she put the adoption paper in a drawer for another 7 years. And she says, how much do we actually miss out on because we don't continue to lean in on the promise that God has given us, or the answer to a prayer when God actually hasn't said stop. So 7 years later, she was asked by a pregnant girl, like she had kind of become a mother to the girl, and the girl was a crack addict. And that girl asked her to adopt her unborn baby girl. But the mom was still using, and the doctors actually said, like, they didn't have a lot of hope that the baby would continue to live. But she said, like, every month the baby grew, and it actually looked really positive. And then she got a phone call from the adoption agency, and the lady on the phone said, look, it's amazing, but all the papers have gone through, everything has been signed, so when the baby comes, like, I think it was only a week left, you can actually go and pick the baby girl up. So she said she was so excited, had been so many years coming, so she got off the phone, was just crying. Not long after, the agency rang again, and the lady said to her, look, I don't know how to tell you this, but Maria, like the girl, and the baby, they're gone, like they've passed away. And so she got off the phone, and she said, like, she just broke down, and she said, like, I've waited too long, it's just too much, I just can't. Shortly after that, her mother rings, and she's thinking, oh, okay, so I can talk to my mom. But before she gets a word in, the mom starts talking, and the mom says, look, the bladder infection that I thought I had actually turned out to be cancer. It's stage 4, and it spread to 4 major organs. So, like, they prayed on the phone. She didn't share anything about the baby girl. 30 minutes later, and this is actually a true story, so but you kind of go, how much more can the poor woman take? 30 minutes after that, her dad rang, like her biological dad, and she said he's a man of few words, but he starts speaking immediately, and he said, look, the cancer's back. Like, it's now in both lungs. I've been given 2 months to live, and he had colon cancer before. So Lisa got off the phone, like, again, didn't tell him anything. And she's just, this is just too much, I just can't. And then she heard God say to her quite clearly, stand and lean. Like, don't give up. Keep your focus on the prize. Keep your focus ahead. Lean on me and allow me to actually work in this situation. Habakkuk 2:3 says, for still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie, or it will not disappoint you. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Now, Habakkuk assures us that what God said, like the vision or what he promised to do, will actually happen. The answer will come, like Matthew 7:7, ask and it will be given to you. But it comes on the other side of waiting. And there's not much we can do to speed up the time of waiting. We can prepare well, but no matter how early we are prepared, how well we are prepared for Christmas, it's not going to come any earlier. And so it is with the promises of God. And there's a reason for it, why God takes his specific appointed time, because during that period of time, it does something in us, like we change for the better. We grow spiritually and emotionally and mentally. Now, in the 70s, Stanford University conducted a study with 4- and 5-year-olds, a large group of kids, and they told the kids that they would get a marshmallow. They could eat it now, but if they waited for a little bit, like, they would get a second one. Now, there were different reactions. A lot of the kids just ate it straight away, but some kids actually waited, and they got the second marshmallow. Now, that in itself is not groundbreaking, but what was really interesting was the follow-up studies over 40 years. Now, the children who had waited for the second marshmallow had done much better in life. They'd performed better academically, they were socially better adjusted, they responded better to stress, and they were less likely to have problems with obesity or substance abuse. So the conclusion of the study was that the ability to wait is important for success in life. A French philosopher and writer, like he lived in the 1800s, I've never heard of him to be honest, Joseph de Maistre, he said, to know how to wait is the great secret of success. To know how to wait is the great secret of success. Now, the Bible actually tells us how to wait. Romans 8:25, but if we expect for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. Now we are told to wait eagerly, like with anticipation, knowing it's going to happen. Keep our focus on the goal and expect that God will actually come through and do it. Isaiah 64:4 says that God acts on behalf of those who wait for him. And so as we wait, we are changed, we are prepared so that we can grow, so that when we finally receive what we were asking for, we can actually handle it and enjoy it. Lisa Harper says, like, the biggest answers to her prayers were actually on the other side of waiting, and like her story continues. So after they found out about the cancer that her mother had, like her mother had an operation, had surgery, and the doctors thought they had actually gotten everything, but for some reason they couldn't explain why her health continued to decline and she wasn't even awake. So they didn't give her long to live. But 4 days after the surgery, she opened, like the mom opens her eyes and says to her daughter, like there was Lisa and her sister were in the room, and she said, like, I want to see your father. And Lisa and her sister, they thought she was still a little bit muddled because the stepdad had passed away the year before. So she's like, Mom, I'm really sorry, but like Dad passed away last year. And she goes, like, no, not Daddy, not that Daddy, your other father. And Lisa was a little bit astonished because they had divorced when she was 5 years old. He had been an abusive guy. They absolutely hated each other, had nothing to do with each other. But she went and rang him up and didn't expect much. And Dad came within an hour. And he said to Lisa and her sister, I love you girls. Your mom and I are going to need some privacy. You'll stay here and I'll be back in a minute. And in he went. And Lisa said to her sister, what if he puts a pillow over her head? She said they hadn't seen each other in such a long time. They hated each other. And he didn't come out for 30 minutes, so she was concerned. But he came out after 30 minutes and he said, I love you girls. Your mom is going to be okay, and I'll be back tomorrow. So they came in. Mom was sitting up in bed with color in her cheeks. And she said, your father prayed for me. He anointed me with oil, like he had become a Christian since then. And I'm going to be okay. Now, until her father died, the mom and the dad rebuilt the relationship. They saw each other every day. They spoke with each other every day. And they restored that relationship. It wasn't romantic, but it was a restored relationship. On Christmas, and that was just before her dad passed away, Mom had invited the dad to come along to the family Christmas. And Lisa thought, well, it's really lovely that they made up, but she sincerely doubted that the family would want anything to do with him because they just knew him as an abusive husband and dad. So she was quite nervous. But when the dad came in, everyone rushed towards him, hugged him, welcomed him in. And Lisa said, she had been praying for that, for that restoration for 30 years. But it came just before he passed away, but it did come. Short time after her dad passed away, a friend of hers came back from Haiti and said to her, look, I saw this 2.5-year-old girl in an orphanage. Her mom passed away from HIV, and the girl has HIV, she's got cholera, she's got tuberculosis, she's really sick. So Lisa went over, saw her, and started the adoption process, and she said it still took another 2 years for all the paperwork to come through, but then she picked up her daughter. And I think she must be about 15 now, is in perfect health. There's no detectable HIV in her blood, no scarring on her lungs, and the doctors kind of describe it as a miracle. But again, Lisa had prayed for that for so many years, and even though she gave up for 7 years, she kept focused on that, and God came through and answered, but it was on the other side of waiting. So I don't know what promise or what answer to prayer maybe you are waiting for, but I think as we are waiting for Christmas, and we know it's going to come, I think it's an encouragement to keep our eyes also focused on the answers to prayers that we haven't received yet, on the promises that we haven't seen yet, and know that God is going to do it, wait for it with anticipation, and trust Him to do it. And that's all I have for today.